Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had an amazing weekend. I know it was filled with different kind of cold weather temperatures, and hope everybody stayed warm. But with that being said, I'm your co-host Ryan Mohammed. Welcome to Sales Chatter, this logistics podcast where, hey, we're trying to give you guys some tips to help 10,000 reps hit a million GP. With me is my main man, my co-host, the bodacious cowboy, the president and CEO of RGTX Logistics Solutions, Jeff Dickinson. How you doing this morning, my friend?
Good, my man. Good. I can't believe the weekend went by that quick, but it was freaking cold. It was like a -7 where I live up here in New Jersey. And I am so glad that it's over with. But there's more to come, man. We're still in winter. So with that said, let's get into it, my friend. Let's do this.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
And there we are. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome back. She's back at the number one spot. Good morning to my main man, Rishi. Hope you're doing amazing. Crush your week, my man. My man, Scott. I love that he's tuning on this episode because we're going to be talking about him. So I hope his ears are not getting too hot this morning as we're talking to
him. Like me. I mean, either, it looks like him and Lisa are like fighting for the number one spot, or Lisa and I used to do that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we got to make some ribbons or some trophies or something like that. We got to get some merch, man. We got to get some Sales Chatter merch.
Oh, we
definitely got to do. What'd you get up to on the weekend, my friend?
Oh, man. I'll tell you what. It was no football, except the Pro Bowl yesterday. That was kind of fun. But I don't know. I just went out and we were taking some pictures. I know you like taking pictures and doing that kind of stuff. And just getting some stuff prepared for my new apparel site, the Bodacious Cowboy trademark. And so we're looking for places. We have some really neat places up here. We could take some pictures, to put it as the banner up there. So much stuff happening there. It's so much. I'm telling you. I thought this was easy.
No. This branding stuff is crazy, man. And just to add on to that, I've made a mission for February to post on YouTube every single day, like little shorts, like I did on LinkedIn, and just like the feedback, like it's crazy kind of thing. So even building your brand, I actually took some pictures on this weekend as well. Yeah. We went to a little bit of a hike on Saturday, even though it was really cold. It was kind of like, hey, let's kind of brace through and kind of push through and have some fun because I've got into the show, Jeff. I don't know. Is anybody in the audience a Succession fan? I got into it's an HBO show, and it's one of like the craziest shows I think I caught like 4 or 5 episodes on the weekend, and it's just a crazy show to kind of watch. So I was watching that. My dog, we picked up my sister's dog. She had puppies on Christmas Day, so we picked her up, and we got to meet all the puppies. There was 9 of them, Jeff, that we got to hug. 9 cockapoos. Yeah, exactly, right? So that's why I thought about you and things like that. So good morning to DJ. Good morning to my main man, Daman as well. Hope you had an amazing weekend. Jeff, let's get into it. I think today is going to be recap just for the audience. We're testing something here as we've been doing the themes of the week. What we want to kind of do for this week is kind of set it up kind of like a season finale. Like, we like the TV show aspect of what we do. So with that being said, we're going to be recapping the first week. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, definitely go and check out those episodes. Those were, we had the short week in January. The first one, we start off with a bang with Scott Watanabe helping us with basically training your way to success. Jeff, from what you remember, because I watched you on, I think it was Word on the Street or something like that, and you're always pumping Scott's tires. So I know you're a huge fan of what he does at Armstrong Transport Group. Give us some thoughts, man, of what you kind of thought, if you do remember.
You know what? Let's call a spade a spade. When somebody's doing good out there, mention them because it's about setting best practices and kind of getting everybody kind of follow that. And I kind of do it myself, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. That's why I'll use Scott as the poster child, right?
Yep.
I think that's the proper way for training. That when you get a new individual that comes into a brokerage, or let's just say any kind of business whatsoever, there should be some kind of training succession as far as onboarding. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? When you're going to do it? And I believe that Scott does it well because he has a 12-week training course. And it's not like he roughshots it and throws his people through it. He wants to make sure that those people are successful. And that's what it's all about. It's about preparing people and getting them into a position or position A to succeed, because you're only as good as your people. And if your people are not trained well, they represent your company and it's going to reflect badly on it. So I mean, kudos for Scott and his team over there to do the right thing. I believe it is the right thing. Hopefully, other people would jump on board on this. But I think if you're a company out there and you are not doing this kind of thing, get on the bandwagon. Let's go, guys. Let's do it right.
100%. And training, that's why we kind of want to start this journey, right? What's the first steps you've got to take to, I don't want to say become successful, but understand the industry and give it a fair shot? Because
Yep.
what I've seen when I worked at my previous companies is they bring like these college university graduates. They don't teach them anything, they don't train them anything, give them a lead list call, and then they don't get to understand the true passion of what we
Yep.
do. They see the long days and the long hours, but like just like yourself, Jeff, like you've always kind of said that I'm not going to retire, man. This is what I love, what I do every day. And I've hit that, I want to say, since I've been at the company that I work with as a contractor, since I've been there for about 3.5 years, is that I love what I do. I genuinely love what I do. And, I think when it comes down to training with Scott, somebody brand new, you got
Yep.
somebody guiding you. Right. And the one big takeaway from that episode that we did, Jeff, was that I asked Scott to tell us a story about one of his agents that was successful. And first and foremost, he was so modest about it, right? It was like this is not my success, it was all her. But I remember the what he was explaining in the story was that the agent, she never owned a home and things like that, and she accumulated all these things just by working hard and becoming one of their most successful reps. And we want to hear those stories, right? Because through the
Oh, yeah.
trials and tribulations of training, it's crazy to kind of talk about. Can you talk a little bit more about what you liked about reps kind of going to DCs and kind of learning by experience there, Jeff?
Yeah, and it's funny because we spoke about that with Scott. I believe that newbies, if you want to call them, or new onboards that are really wet behind the ear, if you could get them into a warehouse or DC, because listen, if you work for a really good company, you're going to have those connections, right? You're going to have connections with people who either manage a DC or a warehouse. And if they're in close proximity to where you're working, take a tour of it. Let's get into the trenches with our people and show them what it's all about. It's not always about what happens outside of that building. Of course, transportation has a lot to do with it, because everything we have on our desk, on our table, what we eat comes from truckers. But it all happens in a warehouse, and there's so many different problems that exist. And if you can circumvent those problems from reoccurring and you get a better understanding, what better understanding would you get if you were able to see what you're dealing with every day? You're making those phone calls, you're talking to those people. Let's get on the same page and speak the same language. You're going to get farther that way. I mean, I believe that strongly.
That is amazing to see, because you learn those aspects, you learn what our actual industry is. And it's kind of funny, right? You think about the Jeff, what was a job that you had in high school, like your kind of like first job? Like obviously
My
it was just
first
kind of just
job, I, I mean, I've been in it for a long time. I was stocking shelves for United Jersey Bank.
yeah.
And that's where
Well,
I started. I started way from the ground
out of
up.
curiosity, what do you mean stocking shelves at a bank? What shelves do they need to
Well, they
stock? The
had,
money?
yeah, I wish, That's pretty funny. No, they actually have a warehouse that has all their supplies and their stationery and all this kind of stuff, believe it or not. And yeah, I started stocking shelves
See,
long time ago.
and that's why I ask, right? Because in those jobs, my first job, I'll say McDonald's, but when I kind of got into retail, I worked at a footwear store. I did like shoes, sold shoes and things like that, and I got to understand what they sold, right? When it comes to, and then you'll probably explain too when you're talking about stocking shelves, I didn't just sell shoes when I was at Sport Check. If anybody knows Sport Check here in Canada, I sold the experience of that grade 6 going to their first basketball tryout, we sold basically somebody, let's say an older person, having more comfortable shoes with New Balances because they did like the wider sole and different things. We didn't just sell shoes because I remember, and this is me because of the way that I kind of grew up, but I remember when I got a new pair of shoes, Jeff.
Mhm.
I would always still have it in the box for like the first 2 weeks. It was so lame, but you still keep those boxes and
I
you're
know,
like,
I
let me
know.
make sure you got the sprays and all those things. And that's what training kind of needs to be as well. You need to give that experience and give that education of what can be, right? And that's why I always kind of believe that that's what should be really, really important, as Scott has brought here, that they've got
Yep.
some great platforms. See, look at that, landing third and fourth accounts. And that's what I've always say, right? You always kind of have people come in and let them do their own thing and be subjective with it. Give them the tools and all that stuff to be successful. But some people are going to land an account on the first call. Someone's going to land an account on the 100th call. It doesn't matter as long as they kind of get that experience from there. So I'd love to get your thoughts, Jeff, on that.
Yeah. It's fine. Let's go back. I think you mentioned something about logistics, 9 to 5 kind of job. When they come into that, they get overwhelmed. I think the mindset that you really have to change is that 9 to 5 mindset, where they're like, oh my God, look at all this stuff. I'm going to be here for another 7 hours. Now, if you can switch that where they don't think about the time and they think about their job and what they're doing when they get in there, the time flies by, and that time, 9 to 5, doesn't really exist if you really love what you're doing.
When you're
Because
making
you're
calls, Jeff.
often, what's that?
Yeah, when you're making calls and you're on a roll, it's
Yeah,
like, oh my God. You look at the time, and you're like, oh my God, it's been like 2 hours. It's just
right.
on that roll, and
And so
it's
you
crazy.
learn, and the time, the clock, doesn't really exist because you're enjoying what you do. It's basically, it really comes down to training, whether or not you have a good trainer, a good mentor, a good coach, a person that can develop you from the bottom up, and it's critical, especially in this industry. You can't just throw them in the water and expect them to swim. They're going to drown. They will drown faster than you can even imagine. So you really have to be that support platform, to be there, to be a great listener, and to help them, not like show them how it's done, but tell them the goals and objectives that need to be completed and let them create their future, but be there to hold their hand, a shoulder to lean on, have that empathetic approach, and to help them move forward. That's the only way that they're going to succeed. The ones that don't succeed are the ones that go through the revolving door. We've all seen them. They come and go like a flash in the middle of the night. And listen, I know this as a fact. Companies spend a tremendous amount of training, all right? And a lot of that is wasted. Some don't even want to do it because they go in there and they say, yeah, sure, I'll train them for 3 months, and they're going to take what we train. They're going to go to another company. You can't have that.
No, you can't.
If you train well, and the individual.
Kind of go from there. As Jeff's internet is cutting off, or is it mine that's going there? With that being said, it's
It sucks, man. I hate my internet. I really do, man. I'm gonna throw the damn thing out the window. No, and to be there, it's critical. It really is. It's a critical part of business.
I love that. So that was episode 1 that we had with Scott. So first and foremost, thank you, Scott, for coming on with us. We got to have you on as Jeff and I kind of plan out our season 2 for
Yep.
future episodes. And if anybody's looking for agency program, definitely reach out to Scott Watanabe, the Freight Sensei. Follow him on TikTok as well. He had a great TikTok where he was asking various sales reps in the office about tips for these kind of markets when it's a slowdown season, prospecting tips. So definitely give him a follow and reach out at Armstrong Transport Group. Let's move things over to you and I. We did our thing. We had a training is a choice episode. We did that on the Thursday. When it comes to training, I'm a true believer that it is a choice. Like you always kind of said, the people who don't work out, if they go through that revolving door, it's because they don't want to put in the work. We have Daman watching today, and Daman has his own agency program as well at American Logistics and Centurion Trucking, where he kind of sets up the foundations, and he's always kind of available and sets up helps with client profiles and different things like that. And it's up to the person, right? You can't force a horse to drink water. They don't want to do it, right?
Oh.
Jeff, when it comes to training is a choice specifically, what takeaways do you get away from that?
On which side, the trainer or the trainee?
Let's go both. Let's play. Let's role play a little bit both. Let's talk with the trainer first, and then we'll go with the training.
Yeah. So like, let's reflect on what we were just going over. Yeah, it is, like I said, it's a critical function. You have to make sure that your people are absorbing what is being trained um, to them. And on the adverse side is, as the trainee, you should always be asking those critical questions to the trainer.
Mhm.
Get involved. A good trainer will be in the trenches with their troops day in and day out. You can't sit in your office. I hardly ever sat in my office, and I was always out there, because you are going to learn from the people that you train as well, because they start becoming those SMEs, and you're all over the place. And that go-to person, is going to tell you what's working and what's not working over time. And then that's going to help you to develop. Remember, and it's an old adage, you're only as good as the people that you hire and train well. So if you're a piss poor trainer and you got poor results, the only person that you need to blame is yourself,
Yep.
because you failed them, and when you fail them, you fail yourself. There's no two ways about it.
I love that you said that, and I read an analogy for all the football fans out there. Anybody who knows Super Bowl's coming up this Sunday. Andy Reid from the Kansas, he's the head coach
Go
of the
Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs. He's playing against Philadelphia Eagles. That was his former team.
Yeah.
Andy Reid was there for a couple of years. I would say, they had successes. They went to the Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens, but they never got that one big one. He made a change when he went to Kansas City. I think he has like 30 coaches, I think he has, that deals with teams in specifically. So
Yep.
think about that, right? You got a team, I don't know how many players. I think there's like 100 players or some more players on a football roster, NFL roster, sorry. But, when you have that one-to-one training to understand, and one thing that I've learned, Jeff, and it's one of my favorite phrases, is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yep.
Ask those questions. Be a student of the
That's the
game.
old adage.
And that exactly from there, right? And for me, I've understood that I'm gonna always ask those questions, and it's not necessarily getting trained within that like scheduled day that you're in the office for, right? It's that 5 to 9. So we talk about the 9 to 5, but it's that 5 to 9, whether it be AM or PM, that you're leveling up your own training, looking at shows like our shows, looking at like Chris Jolly shows, reading people on LinkedIn, building that network, looking at Gunner, taking courses on Skillshare. It's those things that you kind of decide and you map out your future and your career, and that all comes under training and role playing and things like that. Um, Jeff, you've seen it on the logistics side when you sat in the chair of being a logistics manager. Talk to the audience out there, because we do have some new reps probably watching the show. What did the calls feel like when somebody who was prepared and trained versus somebody who knew their stuff?
Well, and I'm just being totally transparent. The ones that really knew what they were talking about was probably about 2% of all the calls that I did. The ones that were smart, that were trained well, that knew who I was, that knew about the company, that knew about my facilities, where they were, the product line that we shipped, all extremely important in this business, especially if you are a service provider, LSP, whatever you call yourself. Um, I highly recommend that you do that, because the other 98% failed greatly, and I red flag them. I mean, when you've got millions and millions and millions of dollars in transportation spend, you have this monstrosity of a target on your back that everybody wants a piece of that pie. It's the truth, and especially if you work for a very large company, that they want to have that company brand underneath their brokerage or as a carrier service provider. And the thing is when you get red flagged, your emails get put into spam, they get blocked. You don't need to write like a tremendous email, monster sized paragraphs, and I say it all the time. Guys like myself, John Brewer, just to name a few who've been in the industry a long time. We were very busy every single day, not from 9 to 5, probably from 7 until 7 o'clock at night, if not longer. We were getting blindsided every single day. You need to be creative. You need to spark my interest. So do your homework. And hopefully, and I say this all the time, and I'm not throwing any brokerage under the bus, so to speaking, but smart shippers will do background searches on you as a service provider if they are smart. So you have your profile and everything like that. Make sure that it is aligned with your story, what sells you, what sells your company, because it can't be something else than what you're trying to sell on a daily basis or even to your customers. Make sure you have to have that aligned. You have to.
And I think that, well, that comes back, and you're going to jump into the gun a bit with the prospecting calls. That's for next week, guys. But with that I said, for the training, and I think it's so important when you're in a training environment that the company talks about their values, talks about their culture, because you're going to form your own identity based off what you're being told in the classroom, right? And for me, I remember classrooms are, hey, it's like 25 or 30 of us. This was before I got into logistics, but talking like a call center environment. But we get into a training environment and go through some PowerPoints, and then we do some testing, and then take lunch, have some games, and different things like that. And I think to understand the message. So if you're somebody who's a trainee, ask the trainer, what are we really good at? And if you get an answer that we're really good at everything, then maybe you want to start running or start looking to go somewhere else, because unless you're, I don't know, I feel like there's no true company that can actually say that, hey, we're amazing at every single thing. There's going to be something that, they're not going to be to.
And something to get back to that. And this is another important point too. When you go to interview with these brokerage houses or individual who are starting up and they're looking for more support, everything, don't think of it as you're going for an interview. Okay, think about it as this is the best opportunity for you, right, as a possible employee, to interview the interviewer. Ask them the most important questions, because you are going to be sitting in that seat. You want to know that you're going to get supported day in and day out, that individual will be there for you. So it's a great opportunity. Just don't sit back and answer the questions being asked. Ask those questions too. This is your time, man. Do that. It's going to help you out in the long run. It's like, I'll mention Scott again. It's like if you asked those important questions and you went to freight brokerage number 1 and they mentioned nothing about training, and now you go to Armstrong and you ask that same question, they go, oh, okay, well, for your onboarding, we've got all these papers and all this other forms that you need to fill out. You're going to spend your first couple of days with Carol. We have a 12-week training program. That's like, really, okay, now you're starting to match up, apples to apples or apples to oranges. Which seat do you want to sit in? If this is what your passion is and what you want to do, ask those questions.
100%. Can't agree with you. I know we disagree on a lot of things, but that's one of the things that I'm like, that's the best thing, because, the interview process, I'm going to be completely wrong. I haven't done an interview in maybe 4.5 years, I would say. Even when I interviewed for this company that I work with, we didn't, it really wasn't an interview. It was really, hey, this is like, we got to shoot it was a referral that I got the interview in. But I feel like the interview process, Jeff, is so outdated. Gone are the days like, hey, name a time that you had an obstacle and how did you overcome it, or name a weakness. I feel like everybody says that their weakness is going to be that they overwork. That they always want to find the positive weakness. And I think you have to truly interview the company as much as they're interviewing you, and understand those questions, because we're going in with the mindset, everyone, that this is a brand new rep coming into the game. Because I feel like, hey, if you've been doing this for a while, like Jeff, if you and I were to somehow woke up tomorrow and we're like, okay, we don't like the position that we're at, let's kind of go somewhere else, that's going to be a different conversation for
Mhm.
training and things like that, right? But
Yep.
as Damon brings up here, is that you start with the core strengths of the company. Once you
Yep.
learn those, then you can expand to other areas, but you get that solid base and foundation. And that's what I say. I always ask, what are we good in? What can
Yes.
we do with our eyes closed? What can we do is that, hey, and it's not just, hey, we have one carrier on this lane. It's like, what can we do so good that if 10 carriers fell off, our 11th is as good as number one? And being able to build those relationships and kind of go from there. Do we have an asset portion of it? Are we going full brokerage? What do we do really well? Because I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. The biggest mistake I made, Jeff, when I first got into when I went to operations into sales, those, what do they call them? Where you see them driving, where they have all the new cars and they're going to dealerships. So there probably like 10 cars on them. What do you call that trailer? Do you know what
Car
it's called?
car carrier.
A car carrier? Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought it was so smart because I was only in operations. I was like, why don't we broker that? Like, why don't we do that? And then I tried, and then it's like getting tankers. I was like, yeah, and hopper floors and all that. So I was like, yeah, let's not try to reinvent the wheel here, Ryan. Let's go with what you've been doing really well as operations and kind of go from there and start with your why from there. Jeff, we had a lot of fun with training and things like that. What tips would you give? And let's go five. Let's go 5 tips. What 5 tips would you give to a new newbie coming into it who's going through a training program just for training? What are top 5?
Oof. Uh, hmm. You always ask me these questions. It's just like they're like there's so many of them.
We only got like 5 minutes left. Just like,
I know. I really have to think about it because they're just so. I don't want to give the wrong answers to
Okay.
this because they're so pertinent. But I'll tell you. Let me tell you a really quick story. All right.
Yeah.
Be like the type of person that is so transparent when you go into interview. I'll tell you a quick story about myself. Okay. I went in for this job, and part of the onboarding was about pilfering, and you had to take a polygraph test, believe it or not. Okay. So I get set up and everything, and I tell the boss, I says, you know what, you really don't have to do a poly test on me. He says, well, why? Everybody that comes in needs to do that. I said, okay. Yeah. Well, it was high-end stereo equipment and small stuff and everything, very high-end. So I said to him, I go, Nick, listen, this is how it's going to go about pilfering. Okay. I'm making X amount of salary. So I'm not going to steal like a $250 or $300 item. This is what I'm going to do. I know a lot of carriers. It's going to happen on Saturday morning. I'm going to have the carriers come in and they're going to back up to the doors and I'm going to empty this place. Because if I'm going to put my job on the line, I'm going to make it worthwhile. I'm going to take everything that I can freaking take out on this thing. And he says, you got the job. Because I was just being that transparent, when you're working to do something like that, that's part of it. The transparency, being honest. If there was something that you have a weakness, tell them about that weakness. What did you do to correct that? I mean, that's like the number one thing. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you good at? Make sure you write all those things down because those are the type of questions that they're going to ask.
Yep.
If you've never worked in a broker, don't say you did. This is going to be my first job. I don't know a lot, but I'm a good learner. Just be upfront and tell them the way that it is, because that's the way they're going to perceive you sitting in that chair. Are you going to be a big BSer, or are you going to be forthright and tell me what I need to know and being, as honest as possible? And hopefully I will get the same thing from my boss or whatever on that side. So, I mean, there's so many different things to ask that are top 5. I mean, it's
Well, maybe you can do like a LinkedIn post. Like think about it, maybe make a LinkedIn post about it or something like that, and we kind of go from there. We've had so much fun recapping. This is probably one of my favorite. I say that all the time. It's probably one of my favorite episodes. But being able to recap what we've done and kind of reflect on those episodes because I know both of us were watching the episodes before we got on here and kind of take some tidbits. So, like we said, we're doing the season finale for this week. This week is the recap of the first week we talked about was specifically on training. for everybody who's watching today, tomorrow we're actually going to go live at 10 a.m. instead. We both got a call tomorrow at 9 a.m. So with that being said, we'll make an event and all that fun stuff. Jeff, some final thoughts regarding training while we take this bad boy home.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask those pertinent questions. You know, when you're going in, and make sure that they have the training that you need. The problem is that the newbies, they're not going to know what a good training program is because they've never worked with it before. You know, so if you want to get into the industry and you start interviewing with multiple brokerages, see if everybody is in a line or what is different compared to others, and if it fits your needs as a new logistics person.
Beautiful. So, want to thank everybody for coming out today. I know we had a lot of fun recapping the week as well. If you found value in this video, please like, comment, share it with a colleague, somebody who maybe is just getting into the industry, or a relationship that you forged on LinkedIn. Send this to them so we can see them tomorrow as we go into our week 2. And I think we'll do week 2 and week 3 recap because we've got Dean on Wednesday. So catch us back on the replay at 12 and 3 p.m. Eastern Time on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And, we'll thank you to our corporate sponsor, Daman at Centurion Trucking and American Logistics. They are looking for agents, and they have an amazing training program where they pay up to 60% GP. So definitely hit them up. We got a lot of things in the future going on, a lot of fun. So, Jeff, always a pleasure, brother. Let's kill it, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
The Bodacious Cowboy out.